Welcome everyone to Dom's Addon Guide. This guide will show you how to set up your World of Warcraft UI to look like my UI. I'm here on my Resto Shaman, and as you can see, I've got my main bar here on the screen with the abilities I use the most. Surrounding it are several hidden bars that only reveal themselves when I mouse over them. This bar is for class buffs like the Priest and Monk buffs. Up here I monitor my personal buffs. Those bouncing messages are there to remind me to put my shield up and to make sure I've got my well-fed buff. My health and mana reveal themselves when I mouse over the unit frame or select a target like this. When I'm in combat, we see reminders of my class cooldowns that appear on the screen. They'll become grayed out when they're not available. In the description, I've got links to the main downloads and a breakdown of the video, so you can skip ahead or back as you need to. There's a lot of configuration that has to happen to get this right, so I'm going to take it slow and go step by step. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment so I can do my best to help you out. Let's get started. First, let's exit out of WoW, not just minimize it, and go to www.tukui.org. Click on Enter Site, then hover your mouse over UIs at the top left. Move your mouse down to ElvUI and then over to Download. On this page, you might need to scroll down a little to where it says Tukui Windows Client and click the Download button. If you're not using Windows, or you don't want to use the Tukui client to keep your ElvUI up to date, click on the Download button below ElvUI, extract the file, and place the contents in your World of Warcraft /interface/addons folder like I did. If you downloaded the Tukui client, go ahead and open it up. Click on the Browse tab, click the button that says Install ElvUI. The green bar will slowly fill as the add-on is downloaded and installed. Feel free to pause this video while you wait. Once that finishes, you're good to go. Close the Tukui client. We'll get to configuration in a few minutes. Next up, let's go to www.curse.com. Click on the client at the top, then click on Download for PC. Mine is already installed, so feel free to pause this video while you go through the install process. So after the install is finished, open the Curse client if it isn't already open. Click on the Get More Add-ons tab at the top. The database may need 10 seconds or so to load. The loading bar will be right here. Once it's finished, you'll use the search bar here to find the add-ons I'm going to list. Click on the gray Install button to install them. Now I'm going to list all of the add-ons you need, both with my voice and on screen. I'm going to take it slow to accommodate our slower typers. The add-ons are also listed in the description, so feel free to type them in at your own pace and skip ahead in the video to configuration. Add-on skins. Ask Mr. Robot. Auctioneer. BadPet. Clique. Deadly boss mods. Decursive. ElvUI chat tweaks. ElvUI still enhanced. ElvUI System Datatext. ElvUI XP Datatext. Fatality. HandyNotes. Master Plan. MoveAnything, Postal, Recount, RSA, Raelli's Spell Announcer, Scrolling Combat Text, WeakAuras 2, Now that you've got them all downloaded and taken care of, let's launch World of Warcraft to get them configured. On the character selection screen, before you click on Enter World, click on this Addons button on the side. Some of the add-ons we'll be using are technically out of date as of this recording. This just means that the developer hasn't updated them since the last WoW patch. I promise nothing bad will happen. Click on Load Out-of-Date Add-ons here at the top, then click the Enable All button to make sure they are all loaded, and then click OK. After that, click Enter World. The first time we load ElvUI, we'll see this screen. This install process sets up the basic parameters of ElvUI that we'll build on. Go ahead and click on Continue. Next, set up the CVARs by clicking here, then click Continue. Do the same with chat. Now, choose a basic theme. I prefer the class theme. Now choose a resolution. As you can see, high resolution is suggested for my setup. Now choose your class type. It'll configure some things on the back end that will make your UI work better for you. I prefer to have my auras and icons all attached and together, so I'm going to click on aura bars and icons. Now click Finished, and your UI will reload. Now, finally onto the fun stuff. So this tiny little C here is your ElvUI configuration menu. Click on it. Now the first thing I like to do is set up my fonts to be uniform. That way everything looks the same. Here on the General tab, click on this drop-down and select the font you want. I'm using SCT Emblem from the Scrolling Combat Text add-on. Don't worry about that pop-up for now. We're going to reload the UI and save our settings in a moment. Click on this drop-down box and choose Media. Make sure both of these drop-downs have the font you want selected. These texture bars also need to be set. I like to keep things simple and use the same everywhere, but feel free to experiment. Also make sure you've chosen Replace Blizzard Fonts here. Now I don't like the panels across the top and bottom of the screen, so I click on them and disable them. Now go to Minimap button bar and make sure Enable is selected. Then click here for mouse over. If you want a little raid marker bar, select it on the drop-down menu and click here to enable it. Next, click on Action Bars here on the left. Make sure this font choice is the one you want. Then click on Chat and scroll all the way down to make sure this font selection is correct. Same thing with data texts, nameplates, and finally, unit frames. Now go to this pop-up and click Accept, or just type /reload UI into the chat text and then hit Enter. Your UI will reload. You may need to actually log out and log back in for all of the settings to take effect. Okay, now that all of our fonts are set up, let's get into some deeper configuration for ElvUI. Open the configuration screen again and go to Unit Frames. Click the little plus sign and select Player Frame. Click here for Combat Fade, which will turn the unit frame off if you're not in combat. Next, click on this drop-down and select Portrait. Click Enable and Overlay. As you can see, your character's face is now overlaid on top of your health and mana bar. You can click here to make it 2D instead of 3D if you prefer that. These settings will let you rotate the model and move it around to your heart's content, go ahead and pause the video and play around with those controls if you'd like. Next, click on Target Frame. Click this drop down and again choose Portrait. Click on Enable and Overlay, and now your target's face will be overlaid on top of their health and mana bar. Again, feel free to pause the video if you'd like to go ahead and tweak things. Now, I like my unit frames to be just a little taller than the defaults. So I'm going to go back to player frame and use this setting to control the height and the width of the frames. 92 is where I like it, and the default width should be fine. So do the same thing for the target frame if you want them to be symmetrical. I have OCD, so I definitely want everything symmetrical. Click the minus sign to close this list back down. Now, our bars down here definitely need some work. Let's make them more interesting. Keep in mind that I'm going to show you how I set mine up. Feel free to try different things to find a setup that works best for you. Click the plus sign here to the right of action bars. Start with the micro bar. Click Enable. We'll make it a mouse over bar later. For now, we need to see it in order to get everything properly positioned. Next, go to bar 1 and go to button size and set it to 48. Now on bars 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, click Enable and make sure that buttons per row is set to 3 and the anchor point is set to top left. Go ahead and pause the video if you need a moment. Now go back to action bars and turn the font outline to none. Now click on Toggle Anchors. Whoa, what is this? This is all your UI elements on the screen, all the ones that you can move and configure with ElvUI. To move them around, simply click on them and drag. Now if you're having trouble because something is trying to stick somewhere, and you don't want it to stick in that place, click on this to turn sticky off. You can also use this mini interface to get things exactly where you want them. The arrows will move things 1 pixel at a time in the direction the arrow is pointing. You can also hit reset to send something back to its default position. Now here's how I like mine, with my main bar here and always active, and my other bars kind of surrounding it and hidden unless I mouse over them. I keep the player frame and target frame sitting right on top, and then my cast bar and my target's cast bar up here so I can see what's being cast at a glance. Now I've moved the tooltip over here on top of bar 6, and then the party, boss, and arena frames all grouped in this area. I'm going to put my raid frames over here. Finally, we'll center the micro bar here. Make sure that X is set to 0. That's what centers it. So that looks pretty good for now. The last thing I want to do is put the experience and reputation bars at the very bottom center. So click lock once you have everything where you want it. Now, go through microbar, bar 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and click on mouse over. Now the bars will only show when you hover your mouse over them. I don't like the size of these chat windows, so I'm going to increase them slightly. Click on chat, then scroll down. I'm going to set the panel height to 260 and the panel width to 560. There we go. Right-click here on General and choose Unlock Window. Click and hold General and drag it up to the bar and get it right where you want it. Then, click and drag this arrow to increase the size of your chat window to fill the area. Right-click on General again and choose Lock Window to set it in place. So the data texts are these little pieces of info along the bottom of each window. You can customize these to your heart's content. Since I'm here on my Resto Shaman, I know I want my spell power, durability, and mastery at all times. So click on data texts and use these drop downs to select what you want. Under left chat, I'm going to choose spell power, durability, and mastery. On the right side, I've got system, friends, and gold. Feel free to pause the video and make your own choices. Next is add-on skins. Click on the plus sign here and go down to embed settings. Make sure single embed system is checked and that Recount is entered into this bar. If you use SCADA, simply click on where it says Recount and type in SCADA instead. Hit OK to save it. Then come down here and click Embed into Right Chat Panel. I like to keep the backdrop selected so it's a little easier to read. Once you have everything set up, you can use your configuration across multiple characters. When you load up a new character, just open the ElvUI configuration screen and click on Profiles. Then select your character in the list, the one you're setting up right now. It will auto-populate your other character with the settings you put in here. Note that you may have to go in and fix the fonts in some places. These chat panels can be minimized. Just click on these arrows and they'll disappear. The last thing we'll cover in ElvUI is configuring aura and buff bars for you and your target. Go to Unit Frames and click on Player Frame. Go to the drop down and choose Aura Bars. Make sure they are enabled and that the anchor point is set to above and attached to is set to buffs. Next, go to debuffs. Make sure that they are enabled, that attached to is set to frame, and that anchor point is set to top left. Finally, go to buffs. Make sure that they are enabled, that attached to is set to debuffs, and that anchor point is set to top left. Now, go to target frame and make sure that aura bars are enabled and set to above and buffs. Next, go to debuffs, make sure that they are enabled, set to frame and top right. Last, go to buffs and make sure that they are enabled and that attached to is set to debuffs and anchor point is top right. You can check them with this Show Auras button. Yours should look like mine do. Now all of this will get you up and running with ElvUI. Honestly, if I went through each and every configuration option, this video would be hours and hours long. Feel free to check out their forums at www.tukui.org/forums for tons of tips and tricks from the community members. The next add-on we're going to set up is WeakAuras. I'm going to walk you through a few of my WeakAura windows so you can get an idea of how to set them up for yourself. Feel free to experiment or ask questions in the comments. I'll do my best to help you out. Let's look at this Ascendance Aura. Ascendance is a Shaman class cooldown. It takes 3 minutes to recharge, so while it's on cooldown, I want to have a monitor for it on screen, but I only want it up if I'm in combat. If I'm walking around the city, I don't care if it's on cooldown. Make sure New is selected and click on Icon. I'm going to name this Ascendance Test. Right-click it and select Duplicate. You'll want to name it after whatever spell you want to use. Make sure Automatic Icon is selected, and it will automatically use the spell icon for the display. Choose the font you want. I like to keep things uniform, so I'll select the same font I used for ElvUI. In text, I want %P, because I want to track the progress of the spell. Play around with the configuration options until it looks the way you want. Under Trigger, select Status in this type box, and Action Usable under Status. For Spell, make sure the correct spell name is in this text box and that it is spelled correctly. Under Load, select the configuration options. I only want it when I'm in combat, and only on my shaman. I don't care about this cooldown if I'm playing my mage. The duplicate we made will only show when the ability is on cooldown. To make that happen, under Display, click Desaturate. Under Trigger, make sure that Inverse and Require Valid Target is selected. And under Load, click In Combat and your player class. Now I'm going to delete these since I already have auras that work for me. Now, click and drag the display to place it where it will work best for you. Finally, I'm going to show you how to create this bouncing text when your well-fed buff is missing. Click on New and select Text. Name it whatever you would like. Under Display Text, put what you would like to see on the screen. Choose the text color and the font and the size of the font. Under Trigger, choose Aura for the type and enter Well-Fed as the aura name. Then scroll down and click Inverse. Now you'll see this text on screen whenever your characters are not well fed. Under Animation, you can select all of the animation options. There are a huge amount of things you can do with WeakAuras. Grab your favorite search engine and type in WeakAuras and then your class name, and you'll get all kinds of great advice and scripts for different WeakAuras. Experiment and have fun. Next add-on we'll set up is Clique. Clique provides mouse over targeting. Just click on a target's unit frame, either here or in the party or raid frames, and depending on what you click, you can cast spells on them. This makes healing, in particular, much easier than normal. For instance, Resto Shaman have a skill called Riptide, our basic heal over time spell. Since I'm set up with Clique, all I have to do is left-click on a unit frame and I will cast Riptide on my target, like this. Shift-click casts Chain Heal, and shift-right-click casts Healing Surge. To set up Clique, hit the P key and open your spellbook. Click on this bottom icon for the Clique configuration. As you can see, I already have all of my healing spells configured, but to configure a new one, just click on the spell to add it to the list, then right-click over here and choose Change Binding. Then decide what you want the configuration to be. Perhaps I want to hold down Shift and middle-click on a target to cast Elemental Blast at them. Well, I click on Set Binding and then hold down Shift and then middle-click. Click on Accept, and now it's set. So if I click on this training dummy to target it, then hold down Shift and middle-click on its unit frame, I now cast Elemental Blast at it. Now this can be done with all kinds of spells. If you have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Decursive is an amazing little add-on I've used since Wrath of the Lich King. If your class is capable of curing curses, poisons, diseases, and the like, Decursive will automatically detect what you can heal. When you or someone in your party or raid is given something you can heal, you'll hear a sound effect, and this little display will turn a different color and be populated with a cooldown. Just left or right-click, this depends on your class, and you'll automatically remove that spell, curse, disease, etc. Just above the main display is a very small display with options. It'll tell you how to move Decursive, how to configure it, all kinds of fun things. If you have questions about Decursive, leave them in the comments for me. RSA is the next add-on we'll cover. RSA announces your spells. Things like Interrupt, Mage Tables, Heroism, and tons more can be announced when you use them. You can choose when your character will announce them, what your character will say. This drop-down of spells will change for each class, so I won't go over individual configuration settings. Just leave me a comment if you have a question, and I'll help you out if you're having trouble. Finally, SCT. To configure SCT, type /SCT space menu in the chat bar. This window will open. Choose the spells you want SCT to track. Then go to Frames and choose the font for frames 1 and 2 in the messages frame. Animation type determines how the frames look on screen. You have a lot of options. Finally, the SCT animation and custom event windows will help you further configure how your healing and damage show up on screen. Again, SCT is something you'll want to experiment with. Leave me a comment if you have questions about it. Now I'm going to cover Auctioneer in a separate video. It's got a ton of options and usability, but I'll show you how you can use it to maximize your gold earnings. So thanks for watching my add-ons video. I hope you learned something, and I hope it makes your WoW UI truly spectacular. Don't forget to give this video a like if it's helped you, and consider subscribing to my channel for more videos on World of Warcraft.